Okay, so what I was telling, so each person should have a unique ID number so that so everyone can understand this ID is belongs to this particular person. The same way, so IRCTC is a name, right? So IRCTC co.in, whatever it is a name. Whenever you call this name, it might not be able to get the exact result that you need, right? So in backend, what it will be converted as an ID. So that ID we call it as an IP address. For example, let's say, just for you to understand, irctc.co.in. Ping is a command where it uses to identify the, so whether a response is coming from this so IRCTC or not. If you see that IRCTC is a IP address, it is resolved directly, right? It is not giving just so IRCTC, right? It is giving IP address. At the same time, so Google, right? So if you type just google.com, what it is telling, it is resolving or converted into an IP address, right? So that is called name resolution, the naming system, sorry, domain name system, right? It resolves this name, whatever name, into an IP address and pull the data or checks whether this is able to so respond or not, right? That is how this works, right? So as soon as it resolves this IP address, if you have any questions, stop and ask me, or you can just note it down. You can ask me at the end of this class. So, right, so just a moment. Okay. So this is it resolves that IP address. As soon as it resolves the IP address, now this is not irctc.in. So now it is whatever IP address it resolves with, like 10.10.0.10. Let's say, for example, this is the IP address, right? So this is IP address in the same way that we get, right? So this is the IP address. We call it as uniquely define this particular name, right? You can consider that unique ID of this particular name, right? Everything, right? You can just go everything, it resolves with the IP address, right? For example, hostname is this. So this is also going with IP address, right? Anything you go, like, so it resolves with the IP address so that it will easily understand and pull the data. So like now this is resolving with the unique address, right? Now what it does, so it go to like whatever, so this is what we call it as a website or web URL, right? So this web URL will be hosted in the web server, right? So this website is hosted in the web server, right? So we have something called web server. Okay, so we have something here in the web server, right? So on second. Okay, so this hosted in the web server where it pulls the data, right? So what it does, so whenever it connects this and it pulls the request, right? So there is a, so we call it as, so HTTP or HTTPS, right? So request, it connects to the web server using this protocol. right? So this is what we call it as a protocol. Protocol is nothing but certain rules or so certain conditions that it meets, right? So whenever as soon as it as soon as you type so irctc.com or google.com, it resolves this IP address through the DNS server, right? It is DNS is just hosted in somewhere, like it is not specific to particular server. It is hosted in a so it is just a host where we will get the so IP address resolved. Like we it is not so this is not our discussion, so I'm not going to discuss more into DNS or even web server or whatever it is, but just wanted to show you how a IRCTC website or book my show or make my trip, anything we get, right? So how we get this? Now it calls that HTTP calls. HTTP is a protocol where hypertext transport protocol. So we call it as a HTTP protocol. Protocol is nothing but certain rules where it checks and get the data. That is a simple thing. Protocol is nothing but a certain rules or conditions where it checks whether this particular website meets that particular condition and connects to this particular website, web server. So web server is where the websites are hosted on, like whatever IRCTC we have. So this is hosted on this web server, right? So whatever websites that you are using this currently, that will be hosted in the web server, where it pulls and show you that interface to you, right? So this is IRCTC. This is just an interface, right, to you to see, but whatever background, that is where it is hosted on the web server. Now so web server is a so kind of container for the website, so you can consider that, where it hosts that websites. Now another thing is a application server. Application, you can consider that application server or application tier or whatever you can consider this as, right? Right. So what happens now? So this is just I am explaining, like let me put it the other one as well. This is a database server, right? So this is the database server that we have. This called tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So we call this functionality is a 3-tier architecture, right? So whenever you type any website in the Google, so why this is important? This is important just for your understanding, like why I'm telling this, so all this is important because whenever you attend any interview, right? For example, so just giving an example, whenever you attend big companies, like say for example, Amazon or Google or any other organization, they definitely ask such questions, right? So whenever you type google.com, so what happens in background? That is a first question they ask in their interview, right? So that is my personal experience. They ask this question. So whenever you type google.com or whenever you type so anything, for example amazon.com, what happens in background and how the data will be requested or how the data will be pulled. So this is the explanation that you will have to give, right? What happened whenever you type google.com or amazon.com or IRCTC, the same thing, the logic is same, the explanation is same, right? So it converts into the DNS, I mean it converts into the IP address, it connects to the DNS server and it converts this into the IP address, and then it opens a HTTP request and connects to the web server, right? So web server is the one where it hosts that applications, right? So web server is host that URL or will host that so websites. So this request came to web server. So now web server needs the data. whatever you pull, like web server is just, so web interface where web server where it hosts the websites, but it doesn't have the actual data, or it doesn't have the logic to get the data. So what it does, it connects to the application server, right? So what application server does, application server where it has that actual logic to connect to the database and pull the data. So what does it mean? So application, so whatever code you are writing, so that is in the application layer where you have the code, actual code. It can be either C sharp, it can be either Java, it can be .NET, it can be .NET or Python. So any logic that they use to develop that application, they use this here in the application server, right? So in that application server, whatever code they use, they write the logic to get the actual data from the database, right? So this application server, what it has something called connection string, right? So remember, connection string. So connection string is nothing but like a normal English word, you can consider the string is nothing but a so variable word or whatever it is, you can consider that. Variable is nothing but the data is vary. If the data is vary, if the data is changed, we call it as a variable, right? So you consider that string is nothing but a string of sentences or string of words, we call it as, right? Connection string, right? So connection string we will have where it connects the database to get the request. For example, in the connection string, what we'll have? The server name. So database server name, you can consider the DB server name XYZ. And okay, for now understand that DB name is ABC. DB name is A, right? For example, let's have these two first. So that it connects to the database and pull the data. So as soon as you pull the data, so it, so reverse direction, it go here and understand the data has been pulled successfully. Then it will send it back to the web server. So as soon as you send it back to the web server will send it back to the user request. Here there is a user. User requested or typed this URL, web URL, and it converts into the IP address, and it connects to the web server using this protocol. Protocol is nothing but a certain rules or conditions that it can be resolved or connected to the particular web server or particular so destination, you can consider that. And this web server needs data to display so that it will connect to the application server where it has the actual logic to retrieve the data, actual logic. So in any of these languages, and it connects to the SQL server, or it connects to, for say, like any database, not only SQL server, it connects to the database in backend, and it pulls the data and it will send it to the user and display this information, right? So whatever booking ticket, whatever date you see from to all classes, whatever it is, everything is stored in the database, right? Whenever you type it here, so you will get this data from the database itself, right? So that is how this works. So here I mentioned this database name, right? So why should I mention this database name? Why don't I just leave that server name? Because I have this server name, right? So this is a ABC server. So sorry, XYZ, right? This is XYZ server. Why should I mention this database name as A? in the application, why don't I leave just it is, right? For example, this database server, let's take an example of the database server here. This is the database server, DB server. So DB server, you have, so multiple, you can have multiple databases related to a different applications. For example, this database is related to IRCTC or google.com. This can be for Amazon. So another database is referring to Flipkart, right? So if application connects, this is your application. So how, if you just mention that this is the overall XYZ, this is A, this is B, this is C, right? You have three databases called A, B, C. So if you just specify in your connection string, remember this connection string word, I use this many times, maybe in the future as well, because this is important to connect your application to the SQL Server, right? Without connection string, this is in even in the, so whatever I'm teaching, that is just, so live, so real time words scenarios that I'm teaching. So not just simply I'm teaching something like, so just remember these things. Connection string, like, so whenever you, if you just specify this XYZ without specifying a database, right? As I said, like you have three databases where it connects. This application connects here, up to here is okay, but which database connects and pull the data? This is your which application? Flipkart. So if you just specify this Flipkart application and server name, so which database it connects? Let's say, for example, Flipkart connects to the google.com. If it connects to the google.com, and if you are trying to purchase anything, so would you be able to do that? No, right? Like you will not have any information related to the products, related to any purchase information or anything, right? So you should not connect to the google.com. At the same time, if your Flipkart application connects to the Amazon, what will happen? Right, Flipkart is different e-commerce and Amazon is a different e-commerce, right? So you will have a different so products altogether, and everything is kind of mix and match, right? So you should not connect to the Amazon as well. So what you will have to do, you should connect only to the Flipkart, nothing else, right? So you should only connect to the Flipkart. So how this application, how we are make sure this application connects to only this Flipkart is because of the name of the database, right? So you will have to provide DB name as B, for example, right? So DB name as B. This semicolon is important to so define this I mean to provide this database name, or anywhere, like so the common, the semicolon is common, right? For example, to separate the metadata and the actual data. So metadata I'll talk different, don't worry about it. But yeah, for now to understand, you'll have to provide the database name along with the server name so that it connects to the database and pull the actual data that you need, right? So this is how the three-tier architecture works. So any questions until now? Okay, so I assume you don't have any. Right. Okay, so this is a three-tier architecture that we have. So let's go into So these are all duties. So I'm not going to explain these duties for now, but let's go ahead and so explain other. Right. So this is the same. So I have explained here in a detailed way. So how this user request comes in, like how this is converted into the DNS, and how it goes to the so web server, and from web server to application server, from application server to the database server to pull the request and pull the data. Right. So now let's go ahead and understand the SQL Server technology that we have, or we are intend to explain. So before that, right? So what is SQL Server? So SQL Server is a you can consider a one of the software or one of the technology that we use to host our data, right? So SQL Server is one of the database servers or database technology that we use. So likewise, we have different technologies to host the data, right? So host the data as in like to store the data. So what we have other so database softwares or database technologies that we have. So we have something called Oracle, where they have their own database, Oracle database. So whereas we have DB2, so DB2, it has a own so database so server where it hosts that specific to DB2. Likewise, we have something called MySQL. MySQL is again the same way that we have a SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, MySQL, and we have something called PostgreSQL. So we have different database technologies or database softwares that we have in the market, right? But in this class, we all discuss about the SQL Server, right? So you should learn one of these technologies to jump or so start your career as a DBA. But trust me, so SQL Server is better and easy to use so then I believe, like so my understanding, because I started with SQL Server. So it is easy to use and understand even to the new people. These all softwares, right? So SQL Server or Oracle or MySQL, all we call it as a RDBMS. So, right? I will tell you what is RDBMS. RDBMS is nothing but sick. So we call it as a RD. So we call this as a RDBMS. So we relational da- so right. So RDBMS is nothing but a relational database management system. So what is that relational database management system? Okay, sorry. Right. So what is this? Don't read it. So if you just read it, don't read. I will explain this so in a better way. Like so we have something called RDBMS. RDBMS was introduced so before RDBMS, we use it to call as DBMS, right? So just a DBMS, database management system. So where we manage the databases, right? So data, where we manage the data, right? So system like management system like database management system, where we use it to manage the data, right? So before we so even introduced RDBMS, there was a database management system. So why if there was already an existing DBMS, database management system, so why even we need a RDBMS? Let's understand the difference here. So DBMS stands for database management system. DBMS stores data as files. For example, you have two notepads here. Let's just take a so simple example. You have this notepad here, right? For example, any university, like AU, Andhra University, for example, right? So you have different, so different streams or different, you know, so different, like, so different streams you have, right? In the Andhra University, for example, so MBA, MCA, BTech, right? So MBA, how many students we have? 100. So MCA, you have 100. BTech, you have 200. For example, let's consider that. You have these, so technology, like these streams that you have. Here in another notepad, you have students list, MBA students list. You have whatever, like, so 100 members, A, B, C, D. So another notepad, you have MCA, whatever. This consider it as a names. This is considered as a names on that particular field, right? So BTech, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, right? You have different notepads that you have now. So I want the data. I want the data. What data I need? So I need total students list from AU or so JNTU, for example. So any university you consider, I want total student list from who passed out 2015, 16, 15 in different different streams, right? For example, so this 2015, for example, let's consider that 2015 students, 2015. So total how many? So 200, 300, 400 students, right? 400 students from MBA, MCA, and BTech. BTech, right? So total students are 400. So I need total student list, including their details, right? So their names as well, right? You need every student information who passed out in 2015. So how you will get that data, right? You have this here, you have one notepad, here you have one file, here you have another file, here you have another file. How you will get the data? So you need some person to sit and collect this data and so type it manually or match it manually, right? So you don't have any relation between these four files, right? So you don't have any relationship between these four files so that you can pull the data in a single request, right? You cannot do that. So what you'll have to do, you'll have to do an extra work, whatever it is, you will have to do an extra work, which is not easy. For example, at the same time, you want uh, this is Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, right? So whatever states you take. So I need this is states, this is people list from different parties or people list on this particular state. Karnataka, these people list, Bihar, Telangana, AP, whatever it is, a different people list that we have. And I need to pull all the people, whoever, so belongs to this particular state. So how to get that, right? How to get that? For example, let's say I have here AP. So Andhra Pradesh, I have, so whatever, like, so crores of people we have, right? For example, so I need to pull the details of the people, right? So if it is a flat file, we consider this as a flat file, right? Flat file is nothing but anything like, so which is not a relational files, right? So I mean, don't worry about it. We consider this as a file where if you want to pull the data, it is really not an easy task, right? Especially if you have a huge data. So that is where we came into the picture with the RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, right? So here in the DBMS, we don't have a any database technologies that we talk about, right? So like, for example, SQL Server, Oracle. So we don't have anything. So we have a flat file system. That is simple example is the Notepad, where if you have a data and where there is no relation between multiple files, it is difficult for us to pull the data or get the data, right? No relation between the data. Like notepad that we have, data elements need to access individually. That is what I explained, right? So you'll have to access it individually, one by one, right? So there is no easy task, easy way to pull and merge the data. Merging is needed, like for example this one, right? So for example, I need every student details who completed their graduation in 2015, right? So I cannot get the data in a simple way, right? I'll have to do an extra lot more extra work to pull the data, right? So data fetching is slower for the large amount of data. That is what we discussed. Like it is slower and sometimes it is not even possible to fetch the large amount of data, right? So there can be some data mismatch, or there can be some mistakes. It can be anything, right? So to pull the data, example, a flat file is nothing but so just an example of Notepad. XML, Microsoft Access, MS Access is one of the database technology where we have the similar technology. So I'm not going to so discuss about that. Right. Same way, like, so XML as well. XML, there is no structure and there is no relation. We have, so in the, to pull the data, right? This is how there are many drawbacks in DBMS. That is the reason, so we, I say, like, so we have some, like, so our inventor was CORD. CORD is a inventor for database technology, RDBMS technology. CODD or COD, whatever, like, so COD was a, so introduced RDBMS technology, right? RDBMS is nothing but relational database management system, right? For example, you consider that, sorry, right? So you have a, you can consider a single database or multiple database, it doesn't matter. You have, let's say, for example, A, B, C, right? You have three different databases where it has a, information of one particular MBA. For example, this has information of MCA, BTech, right? You have three different databases where you have, so three different databases in a relationship with the each other, right? So you will have a relationship. I will talk about, so how that is related with each other. But for now, understand that you have a relationship in the database. For example, how that relationship works. So you have, you all, like MBA and MCA and BTech are completed in a specific college. What is that college? You can consider JNTU. So this JNTU college or university has a unique ID, right? For example, unique ID is 1010, right? So this has a unique ID 1010, and this you will have, these all people are belongs to 1010 unique ID. This also will have that unique ID as 1010. This also has that unique ID called 1010, right? So just this is just a simple example. I will talk more about the relationship later, but understand these three are unique, defined with the organization are uniquely defined with the university ID, so that we will have that three people are, we can match the three people are, related to a specific university, so that I can pull the data. So how to pull the data, that is secondary. Just wanted to show you how RDBMS, how we have a relationship between the between the so databases or something, how RDBMS came into the picture. So relationship databases. So when you have the relationship, then reading the data or pulling the data, or pull is nothing but a retrieving is nothing but a reading. So you can consider that way. Pull the data from the databases easily if you have a such relationship. Okay, how to pull, that is leave it to me, I will explain that later. So data is stored in the format of tables. So tables I will talk later. Don't worry about this, but data is stored in the databases to access easily. Faster because relation approach. Data fetching is fast because of relational approach, right? So we have a relationship. The reason we can pull the data faster, right? So these are the examples of RDBMS technologies that we have, right? Right. For now, I'll stop here. So any questions?